afternoon and happy Saturday. My name is Maritza. I am an art teacher with ASI, and I'm very excited to be starting a new video series on Latinx culture. And we will be focusing on artists, but not only fine artists, which is the what we typically associate when we hear artist, but also with singers and dancers and writers and poets on top of the traditional fine artists, like paintings and drawings and sketches and such. I've done series in the past, which you can find on ASI's blog, on Facebook, and on the website. I've done literacy through art and women artists in the past, and I'm very excited to be picking up these themed lessons again. And as I said, we are going to be doing Latinx culture, and I wanted to start off this series with something that's especially important to ASI's philosophy, which is muralism. If you don't know, ASI is very active in Philadelphia with creating murals in public spaces. So I thought it would be very appropriate to start off our Latinx culture series with Mexican muralism, which has played a huge role in bringing muralism painting back as a respected and widespread artistic model with usually has very strong social intent behind it, which means they're making comments on our society and what people think should change and what we can do better. So Mexican muralism came about after the Mexican Revolution, which started in 1910 and lasted into the 20s. The exact end date of the revolution is disputed, but I'm going to say that it was ended in the 20s just for the purposes of this video. And the Mexican people were revolting or fighting against the dictator Porfirio Diaz. So Diaz's rule very negatively affected the blue collar or manual labor workers and the poorer people living in Mexico. So they fought back against the ruler because his policies were negatively affecting them. So at the end of the revolution, the new government commissioned or paid artists to create art that was for the public, for everyone. So they thought that to put murals on the sides of buildings, on the street, was the best way to reach the most people, because it's more accessible. It's easy to see it on the street. You don't need to go into a museum to see these these pieces of art. It's for everyone. So they created murals in public spaces, and they were commissioned in order to educate even the most illiterate masses of Mexico. Illiterate meaning you can't read or write. So they commissioned these public pieces of art to teach even the people who couldn't read or write about Mexican history, and especially the Mexican Revolution, because the people that were illiterate or weren't able to read or write were usually the ones that were being the most affected negatively by the Mexican Revolution. So the government thought that it would be a good idea to commission artists to paint in public places to educate everyone. So there were many muralists who were commissioned to do this during after the revolution, but the three that we are going to focus on today are Jose Orozco, Diego Rivera, and David Siqueiros. So I have pictures of them here. This is Orozco, this is Rivera, and this is Siqueiros. You may have heard of Diego Rivera before. He was Frida Kahlo's husband, and he is pretty well known in the United States. So these three men are known as Los Tres Grandes, or the Big Three Muralists of Mexico. And I'm going to show you some of their art today, but they were very revolutionary for Mexican muralism because their work focused mostly on everyday people, common people, who they called the everyday heroes of Mexico. The reason this was so important is because historically, art depicts white, European, or Western people as the subjects of their work. It's, you see people celebrated like famous people, rulers, kings, queens, people in beautiful dresses at parties and fancy events. And rarely do you see paintings of people living their everyday lives. And even more rarely do they depict people who are suffering. I have a couple of examples to show you. So, the most famous paintings in the world, according to Google, you may know some of them, are the Mona Lisa, which is right here, the Last Supper, which is a painting by Leonardo da Vinci depicting a scene from the Bible, and the Creation of Adam, right here, which is on the Sistine Chapel's ceiling in Italy. And this up here is George Seurat's A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Grand Jatte. So the reason I wanted to show you these paintings is because, one, all of the artists who painted these were white and European, and the subjects in the paintings are all white, dressed in fancy dresses here and here, and none of these paintings depict people of color or people who are suffering. So Mexican muralists wanted to make the everyday people the main subject of their work, because everyday people and people of color did not get, or have historically not gotten, the recognition in art that white European people and subjects have. So, Siqueiros, Rivera, and Orozco, and other Mexican muralists focused on the non-European heroes, like the indigenous people of Mexico fighting the conquistadors of Spain, or the colonists of Spain, and the common laborers of Mexico, and farmers, and people of color, mostly focusing on Mexican people. So by doing so, they made the Mexican people the heroes of their work. And by using murals painted on the sides of buildings and in public spaces, as I mentioned before, they were able to reach more people, and through the content of their work, so what was actually in the painting, their art appealed to the ordinary person, or the everyday person, which they called their everyday heroes. So right here, this is a mural done by Diego Rivera. It is an image of people working in factories, which is, again, revolutionary because this is so rarely the content of famous paintings that we see hung up in museums. So this is people, blue-collar workers or manual labor, people who do manual labor as their job. They depict the blue-collar workers in this factory. Another mural done by Rivera is this one up here. You can see that there are farmers picking oranges and putting them into crates to be shipped off to, grocery stores and markets. And right here, this is a mural done by Siqueiros. It's called Death to the Invader. And it depicts the indigenous people, or the native people of Mexico, fighting the Spanish conquistadors, or the colonists, who invaded and took over Mexico and made it their own. So, finally, this is a mural done by Orozco, and it's called The Banquet of the Rich. Up here, you can see the rich sitting at a restaurant, eating fancy food in their fancy dresses, and underneath here, you can see the blue-collar workers, the people who work in the restaurant, serving them their food, making sure that the restaurant can run. So these images were in murals all across Mexico. So today we are going to do a project inspired by them. We're going to make everyday people, or people who are often overlooked, our everyday heroes by making them the main subject of our work, just like Rivera, Siqueiros, and Orozco did. So, just like the three of them painted murals of farmers, factory workers, indigenous people, we are going to paint or draw, however you prefer to do it, people that the society as a whole doesn't really appreciate. So the people that are constantly making sure that the things that we rely on are working, like cashiers, people who work in supermarkets, postal workers who deliver our mail, garbage people, waitresses, and things like that. Anyone working a minimum wage job, serving you coffee in the morning, making sure that you can get the groceries that you need during the pandemic. And I think that this is incredibly important now, especially with the pandemic, because we see so much praise for healthcare workers and the people, essential workers, people who go in to do their jobs, despite the fact that they're putting themselves at risk of getting the virus themselves. So again, the people who pick up the recycling and the garbage. I have never seen a painting as them the main subject of art, but they are so incredibly important because imagine that the entire time that we've been in this pandemic, which is almost 11 months now, nobody picked up our garbage. It would all start piling up on the street, or the postal workers stopped delivering our mail. We would have a lot of people would have no contact, no deliveries, not be able to get very important prescription medicine. Not to mention that the U.S. Postal Service, or the USPS, delivers medication and mail to prisoners, and they would not be able to have any contact with the outside world otherwise, especially during the pandemic. So we are going to pick someone. I want all of you to pick someone that you think is overlooked and deserves some appreciation and to be the subject of your artwork. So I chose to do a local postal worker. I think it's incredibly important that we give the USPS and all of the people who make it run some appreciation that they deserve, because they have been working throughout the pandemic, worked through snowstorms in the freezing cold, and we would be lost without them. But I don't see them featured in any artworks, so I wanted to do that today. So this is my painting or drawing. For this project, you're going to need something to draw with, whatever you want to do that on, paper, and something to color with or paint with. So I did it in a sketchbook. I'm going to rip it out later so that I can show you the next part of the project. And I decided to draw a postal worker, the one that always comes, that delivers the mail on my street, in his van, in his mask, of course, because I wanted to show that throughout the pandemic they're still working, and in the classic USPS truck. So this is mine, and I would like everyone to pick one of their own everyday heroes, as I mentioned, and draw them. Now, if you would like to write something on the back of your page, I just ripped mine out, you can always write something on the back of yours, maybe a thank you, or many thanks for continuing your very important work through the pandemic, you are my hero. You can write something nice on the back, and if you can safely do that, give it to the everyday or one of the everyday heroes that you depicted. You can also, of course, share it on social media or just keep it for yourself, but I think that it's important that even if one of the everyday heroes doesn't see it, it's still important that you make them the subject of your art. So again, you can write something nice on the back and give it to someone. You can hang it up. You can share with us on social media. And share with me, please. I will be posting a blog and a lesson plan on the ASI website with all the information that I just shared, written instructions, and pictures of my own examples. So if you want to look at that, the link will be in the description of this video. And I will be doing another video next Saturday, around 1:30 again. And I hope you tune in and share with us the work that you did at Artsphere Inc. on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can also comment under our blog. So thank you so much for watching, and I am very excited to see the work that you guys create.